as representatives from the United States and as many as 15 foreign countries assemble for one of the greatest of the famed international road races, the Florida International Grand Prix, a grinding 12-hour endurance race for man and machine. During the days preceding the race, Sebring has turned into a mecca as teams of drivers, owners, mechanics, as well as sports car fans congregate from all corners of the racing world. Every street and garage in Sebring seems to be occupied by a shiny, low-slung speedwagon. It's the day before the big race, and so out we go to the course to watch the preliminary practice runs. The course is located at Sebring Air Force Base, an old World War II terminal about 6 miles south of Sebring. Before the race, rigid examinations are in line for both man and machine. Drivers need to be in top physical shape. Technical inspections for all cars are a must. Safety factors get top priority in such a grueling endurance contest as the Grand Prix. Here's the Ford Thunderbird being checked out. In the Grand Prix, all entries have to be roadable and licensable sports cars that can be bought by the public right from the showroom. The cars must carry all normal touring equipment, such as fenders, lights, and electrical equipment, including a starter. In addition, spare tires, necessary tools, and spare parts for all road repairs must be on hand. The drivers must be prepared to meet all the conditions likely to be encountered in a normal cross-country race. Last-minute preparations for the course include setting out these hay bales on all of the corners and escape areas to protect the cars from spinning. These conical markers are set out to mark off the course. Although small, they have a high visibility. The start-finish line is marked by an overhead bridge by which spectators can safely cross the track. Overlooking the start-finish line is the judges and timers stand. Only a hangar could accommodate all the cars represented in the race. For this Grand Prix, a special Oldsmobile was sent down to be used as the pace car. The pit area extends from the start-finish line all the way down to the treacherous KLG hairpin curve. The pits, incidentally, are patterned after the pits at the famous Le Mans Grand Prix. The course here at Sebring is a twisting 5 2/10 mile combination of airport runways and paved roads. Its switchback corners demand and get the highest respect from a driver. There's no better way to get an idea of the course than to see it through the eyes of a driver. In this case, it's Briggs Cunningham, and we're behind the wheel of his famous D Jaguar. Going down the straightaway after leaving the starting line, we're on one of the terminal runways. Incidentally, concrete may look smooth to the eye, but at 150 miles per hour, a speed which many of these cars attain during the race, some sections of these runways turn into washboards. Coming off the concrete now onto paved country road, the course narrows considerably. Arrows along the side of the road mark the switchbacks clearly. Approaching these curves and switchbacks at something like 90 miles per hour, lightning downshifts and braking are routine. Even so, spin-outs are not infrequent. The emphasis here at the Grand Prix, however, is not upon speed alone. Car and driver stamina and precision maneuvering along this course over a rugged 12-hour period determines the winner. Coming back onto the field now, we're approaching Route's right turn. Flagmen are stationed at every corner with 3 flags, green for perfect safety, yellow for caution, hold your speed to 40 miles per hour, and red for stop where you are, crowd control is lost, or danger on track ahead. European drivers consider this course at Sebring one of the most difficult and tricky of all Grand Prix courses. It's not as smooth as the Le Mans track and has more wicked switchbacks than the average European course. We're on one of the final straightaways now. This one is almost a mile in length, and toward the end of it, many cars are all but airborne. Out of the Dunlop turn, down the last straightaway now, knuckles are white against steering wheels and throttles are wide open as the cars scream down toward the KLG curve, a monster staple-shaped corner, the last threat before the final straightaway and the finish line. Coming down past the long line of pits to the start-finish line gives a pretty good idea as to the tremendous number of entries in this Grand Prix. Practically every known late-model sports car in the world is represented here, and on race day the track is just one long, low line of chrome and color under the start-finish line. Here's Fred Ash, Jr., the chief pit steward, checking out his Cadillac Allard to supervise the various pit activities. Now for some practice runs. There's number 77, an MG, getting set to pull out. Davis, the chief starter, with the green flag. Number 65, an Oscar, built by the Maserati Company. Number 14, a C-Type Jaguar, taking off. And here's number 19, the winning car, the famous D Jaguar, driven by Phil Walters and Mike Hawthorn, and owned by Briggs Cunningham. Number 9, the Ford Thunderbird, looking very smooth and very fast. A Maserati, number 54, followed closely by number 45, an Austin Healey. Austin Healey's proved to be a very popular entry at Sebring. Number 74, another Oscar. There's the Oldsmobile Pacer. Number 36, a 3-liter Maserati. Phil Walters in the Cunningham D Jaguar. Number 53, a Ferrari coming out of the back turn. Here comes number 61, a Porsche Spider, followed by the Thunderbird. Number 7, Jim Kimberly in his 4.9 Ferrari. Back in the pits now during the practice runs. Tires, spark plugs, all equipment has to be constantly and rapidly checked in brief pit stops during the race. Left and center are Mike Hawthorn and Stirling Moss, top drivers in this international classic. Responsible for the arrangements of other races for the Sports Car Club of America is George Rand, here discussing the race with other officials. Practice has been resumed now and will go on past dark, since the race itself extends several hours beyond sunset. Here's one of the most vicious switchbacks on the Sebring course, a narrow hairpin curve with no margin for error in judgment. Spin-outs in this turn are frequent and harrowing. The trails of black rubber on the pavement testify to the threat posed here to a driver roaring down the approach at 80 to 90 miles per hour. Incidentally, the cars are not operating at their highest speeds, as they will be tomorrow. Drivers are anxious to save as much wear and tear as possible on their cars while still getting the feel of the course. After dark, the cars have only the benefit of their headlights. The course itself is entirely unlighted, with the exception of the pit areas. And so ends the first day of speed. Cars and drivers have tasted their first acrid dust and fumes of a fast track. Morning of the big day in the road to Sebring Terminal is a long chain of sports cars, drivers, race car fans, and spinning wheels. The air fairly crackling with tension as drivers and technicians give last-minute checks to their cars. In all classes, competition is sharp, and technical perfection and efficiency is a must for cars and drivers. Here's Alfred Momo, the famous technician from the Momo Corporation, charging the plugs in a Maserati. Can't take a chance on a weak spark out on the course when seconds are gold. Jim Kimberly's 4.9 Ferrari, a triple threat in this race from the very beginning. Phil Hill, the famous California driver, number 25, a Mondial Ferrari. Ferrari happens to have the largest number of entries in this particular race. There's the team of 300S Mercedes-Benz cars from Venezuela and the Argentine. Jimmy Melton driving out now in his old Stanley steamer to meet the race director for a short spin around the course before the race. The old Stanley's in perfect mechanical condition and always makes quite a spectacular sight at these races. Bert Ash again making a final check with his men in the pits. Colonel Harrington, chairman of the American Automobile Association, gets aboard the Stanley steamer now with Jimmy Melton to take a run down the straightaway just before the start-finish line. There's only a few seconds left now before the start of the race. There they go. The final green flag is dropped. The drivers race for their cars in the traditional Le Mans start, and they pull out in an amazing roar of horsepower. The first few seconds are important as they all vie for pole positions, hoping to avoid the congestion of a bad traffic pattern. In the background, there they go off the airstrip and on down the paved road. And here comes the D Jaguar, well out in front on the first lap. So it's not very long before they've weeded out the men from the boys in this early wild maneuvering in heavy traffic. This is the first time the drivers have pressed their machines into maximum acceleration, which rapidly strings out the fastest cars from the slower ones. With the big displacement cars fast pulling out into the lead, it's only a short time before everything settles down and the big cars are lapping the smaller ones. Here's number 9, the Thunderbird, coming out of a turn, followed close by number 57, an Arnold Bristol, and number 39, an Austin Healey. They're really pouring it on now, and for the next 12 hours, the air around this course will be nothing but dust and thunder as these raging engines tear up the track, marked as a flash repeatedly by the pit crews for their drivers to tell them their lap and position in the race. Here's Jim Kimberly's Ferrari, number 7, in for a pit check. Only 2 mechanics and the gasoline refueler may touch the car after the race begins, and they can do so only when both drivers are back in the pit so as to prevent more than 2 persons being on the course for each car entered. Number 7 is refueled and ready to go. You certainly don't spend much time or wasted energy in these pit stops. Every operation is down to a science. Coming down the back stretch, it's the D Jaguar well out ahead in its class. The Ferraris and the Maseratis, though, are hard on his tail. Here's number 53 at Ferrari in the pits after a bad spin out in which the gas tank got badly dented. Mechanics tried in vain to make temporary repairs in order to get the car back into the race. Back on the course, in the first few hours of the race, cars are being waved into the pits for refueling and tire changes. Briggs Cunningham, number 37, coming in for his first pit stop for a complete change of 4 wheels and a gassing up. With the exception of gas, oil, water, spare tires, and jack, no equipment can be handed over from the pit rail to the 2 designated drivers who are strictly on their own as on any cross-country run. The rules prohibit refueling by hose or by any other than 5-gallon containers only. They don't say anything about the size of the funnel, fortunately. Here's number 83 out of gas. Lucky for the driver, it's near the pit area because no assistance can be given in such an instance. Yes, sir, you are really on your own in this race. Gordon Bennett, relief driver for Cunningham, piles into number 37, which has been refueled and is ready to grind out more laps in this Grand Prix Classic. And he's away. We're on the bridge now at the start-finish line, looking down over the final straightaway before the cars barrel out into a very fast 110-mile-an-hour curve beyond the bridge. It's a tremendous thrill to see these cars coming out of the far turn at the end of this straightaway in a geared-down controlled power slide with 4-wheel braking, and then to roar out with unbelievable power down this last straightaway. Back on the hairpin turn, the first switchback after the cars hit the paved road coming off the airstrip. Now watch this Sea-Jag coming around fast. He's overshooting into the sand, almost a spin out, but he's okay. This switchback is about the trickiest on the course. Manipulating switchbacks like this takes split-second precision of man and machine. Too fast an approach and a dangerous spin out can result. Too slow and precious seconds filter away. Most of these boys seem to be hitting it right on the button. Just as the established practice at the Le Mans, there are 2 basic yardsticks which determine the winner when the clock strikes 10 p.m. There's the handicap winner who will have covered the greatest mileage computed on a handicap formula, which takes into consideration the engine displacement and endeavors to level out speed and power handicaps of the smaller entries. Then there's the outright winner who covers most miles in the 12-hour period. The accent of the entire race is on car and driver stamina and reliability and speed, precision of pit crews in performing maintenance operations rather than pure speed, power, or breakneck driving. And so the race continues through late afternoon and evening. Drivers stop for brief seconds to untape their headlight lenses and then continue into the now black night. By this time, many cars have been pulled out because of engine failures or other mechanical difficulties. Only headlights scan the blackness of the course now, but the pace is still unrelenting. The end is near, and the last few laps are as blistering as the first as drivers bear down on the last straightaway toward the finish line at 10 p.m. In this race, it was number 19, the D Jaguar from Coventry, England, that crossed the line as the outright winner. Owned by Briggs Cunningham and driven by Mike Hawthorn and Phil Walters, the D Jaguar turned in a tremendous performance record. And another Florida International and Grand Prix race closes. But the spirit of the Grand Prix moves on to other great courses all over the sports car world, to other great events of international competition.